normal things you do that would have gotten you executed 300 years ago. Let's get straight to the point. Number 8. The coffee shop conspiracy. You're sitting in Starbucks right now, sipping your overpriced latte, scrolling through Twitter, complaining about literally everything. Seems harmless, right? Wrong. In 1675, King Charles II banned coffee houses entirely because he thought they were breeding grounds for revolution. If you were caught hanging out in one, chatting about politics or griping about the government, you could be charged with sedition. That's treason light, and treason got you hung, drawn, and quartered. Your pumpkin spice latte would have been your last meal. The authorities genuinely believed that caffeinated people sitting around talking was too dangerous for society. They weren't entirely wrong. Revolutions did get planned in coffee houses, but still, imagine getting executed because you wanted to debate tax policy over a cappuccino. So next time you're complaining about your boss at Starbucks, remember? 3 centuries ago, you'd be measuring the rope around your neck. Maybe just order it to go. Number 7. The midnight nature walk. Picture this. You're out after dark, maybe going for a run or walking your dog. You're wearing dark clothes because, it's nighttime. Congratulations, you just committed a capital offense. Under the 1723 Black Act, being caught outside after dark with a blackened face or disguise was an automatic death sentence. Poachers used to smear soot on their faces to avoid recognition while hunting the king's deer. So the law didn't ask questions. Dark face at night equals poacher equals hanging. It didn't matter if you were just wearing a hoodie or had mud on your cheek from fixing your bike. If the magistrate thought you looked suspicious, that was it. Trial, conviction, execution. The whole process could take a week. Your Fitbit would have been evidence in a capital murder trial. The irony is that most of these poachers were just starving peasants trying to feed their families, but the law treated them like terrorist threats. So that peaceful evening jog you take to clear your head? In 1723, it's a death wish. Maybe stick to mornings. Number 6. The entrepreneurial bankruptcy. You tried to start a business. It failed. You're drowning in debt. Maybe you fudged some numbers on your taxes or hid a few assets to avoid creditors. Modern day, that's fraud. Serious. Yes, but you're looking at fines. Maybe some jail time. In 18th century England, fraudulent bankruptcy was a hanging offense. If you deliberately concealed your insolvency or cheated your creditors, they'd drag you to Tyburn and string you up in front of a cheering crowd. The law saw it as theft on a grand scale, and theft was one of the bloody code's favorite reasons to kill people. There were over 200 crimes punishable by death, and being bad at business made the list. Your failed Etsy shop would have been your obituary. The government was so paranoid about economic stability that they'd rather execute you than let you declare bankruptcy and start over. Capitalism with consequences, except the consequence was your literal neck. So next time your credit card gets declined, just be grateful you live in an era where financial ruin doesn't come with a noose. Barely. Number 5. The digital impersonator. You've made a fake Instagram account, maybe to stalk an ex or catfish someone for fun. You've pretended to be someone else online. Harmless internet nonsense, right? Nope. Under the bloody code, impersonating another person with intent to defraud was a capital crime. If you assumed someone's identity to trick people, scam them, or gain something you weren't entitled to, you were executed. No trial by jury safety net, just a quick trip to the gallows. The law didn't distinguish between I pretended to be my friend to prank someone and I assumed a lord's identity to steal his estate. Both got you killed. Your catfish account would have been Exhibit A in your murder trial. The authorities were terrified of forgery and fraud because it threatened the entire social order. If anyone could pretend to be anyone, how would the aristocracy maintain control? So they made the punishment so brutal that nobody would dare. Except people did dare, constantly, because humans are idiots. And they got hanged for it. That fake LinkedIn profile where you exaggerated your job title? In 1720, that's a death sentence. Log out while you still can. Number 4. The document wizard. You faked a signature before. Maybe you signed your parents' name on a report card or forged a doctor's note to skip work. Light fraud? Maybe a misdemeanor if you're caught. But in Georgian England, forgery was one of the deadliest crimes on the books. Forging deeds, bonds, currency, or any official document was punishable by death. The logic was simple. If you could fake a signature, you could fake land ownership, steal fortunes, and destabilize the entire economy. So they killed you to make an example. Dozens of forgers were executed every year, often in public spectacles designed to terrify the population into honesty. Your fake permission slip would have gotten you hanged in front of your entire village. The weirdest part is that forgery was considered worse than actual violent crimes. You could punch someone in the face and get a fine, but forge a bill of sale and you're dangling from a rope. The system valued property over people, which is the most British thing ever. So next time you scribble your roommate's name on a package delivery form, just remember, you're one time machine away from being a corpse. Sign carefully. Number 3. The tech-smashing protester. You're mad at your job. Maybe you smash a printer in frustration, or vandalize a self-checkout machine because it never works. Petty destruction of property, right? You'd get fired, maybe fined. But in 1723, destroying new technology was literally treason. The Black Act made wrecking textile machinery, breaking riverbanks, or sabotaging infrastructure punishable by death. Why? Because industrialization was ramping up, and workers were terrified that machines would replace them. So they'd sneak into factories at night and smash looms, hoping to save their jobs. The government government, protecting wealthy factory owners, declared this domestic terrorism. If you were caught breaking a machine, you were executed. No second chances. Your rage quit moment at the office would have been your final act. The Luddites, the famous machine breakers, weren't anarchists. They were desperate laborers fighting for survival, and the state murdered them for it. So that time you threw your keyboard across the room because Excel crashed in 1723, that's a capital offense. Maybe just close the laptop next time. Number 2, the secret grief. You've had a miscarriage or a stillbirth. It's devastating, private, something you maybe don't tell anyone. You bury the loss quietly and move on as best you can. Seems deeply personal, right? Not in 1700s England. If you were an unmarried woman and concealed a stillbirth, you were legally assumed to have committed murder. The law didn't care if the baby was born dead. If you hid it, you were guilty, and the penalty was execution. The logic was grotesque. Society assumed you killed the baby to hide the shame of unwed pregnancy, so they killed you to hide the shame of existing. Women were convicted and hanged based purely on suspicion, with no forensic evidence, no medical examination, just the word of a neighbor who thought something seemed off. Your private tragedy would have been a public execution. This law was rooted in misogyny and control over women's bodies, designed to punish female sexuality more than actual crime. Thousands of women died for the crime of being poor, scared, so the next time someone tells you the past was simpler or more moral, remind them that 300 years ago, grief was a hanging offense. History wasn't kind. It was a nightmare. Number 1, the petty shoplifter. Finally, the big one. You've stolen something small. Maybe you pocketed a candy bar as a kid, or forgot to scan an item at self-checkout. Petty theft, slap on the wrist, community service at worst. But in 18th century England, under the Bloody Code, stealing anything worth more than a shilling, about 30 pounds today, was a capital crime. That's right, swipe a loaf of bread and you're swinging from a noose. The law didn't distinguish between pickpocketing a wallet and robbing a bank. Theft was theft, and theft was death. There were over 200 capital offenses, but theft-related crimes made up the majority of executions. Why? Because the ruling class was obsessed with protecting property. If you threatened their wealth, even in the tiniest way, they'd kill you to send a message. The absurdity reached peak levels. Children as young as 7 were executed for stealing. 7. A second grader could be hanged for taking a handkerchief. The cruelty was the point. Fear was the enforcement mechanism. Your 5-finger discount at Target would have been your last act on earth. And here's the kicker. Juries knew this was insane, so they'd often undervalue stolen goods to save people from execution. A gold watch worth 50 pounds would magically become worth 11 pence in court records, just below the death penalty threshold. Even the system knew it was broken, but it kept killing anyway. So next time you accidentally walk out of a store with something, remember, you're living in an era where that mistake doesn't cost you your life. If this video felt less like a history lesson and more like a reminder that humanity used to be absolutely deranged, do me a favor and smash that like button. It helps the algorithm, and let's be honest, we both need the dopamine hit. Share this with a friend who thinks the past was better. You know, the one who romanticizes the good old days when people got hanged for stealing apples. And don't forget to subscribe to Coolest Dude Explains. We're out here making sure you appreciate not living in a murderous hellscape. We'll be back next week to unpack more historical insanity. Until then, try not to commit any capital offenses, which, honestly, is harder than it sounds. Peace.